So I've been delivering the boat overnight to Douarnenez, came back hitchhiking to La Trinité to get the van back, and I've just arrived at my friend's place, Riton, where I'm going to spend tonight before going back to Douarnenez, get the boat ready for the next race. And I had a package arrive, which is not boat part, it's... ta-da!
The Bay of Douarnenez is really tricky. Many currents and local effects. Really hard to negotiate in light winds. I took an okay start, not outstanding, but I was in the mix. But despite this, I found myself mid-fleet when getting out of the bay. I don't really know why and how. After looking back at the tracker, talking with other skippers and debriefing with the coach, I can't really explain what happened. Sometimes it's down to luck. So once again, it was catch-up time. And soon enough, it was the infamous Ratsin. You've seen it in other of my videos, but it's basically a massive tidal place, with currents up to 5 or 6 knots. In that case, there was more current than wind, which made up for a really nice mess, trying to hold the fluffy spinnaker in swell and no apparent wind. But eventually, wind filled in, and it was time for some nice downwind time.
I woke up in my bed today, the sun was in my face. I rolled my eyes and took a look inside of the bed's an empty space. An empty space. So I go crashing through my life now, darling. Probably too much. Sliding down the razor blade and rip the horse's eyes. There's nothing I can do about came home tonight, we'd both be fine for a while. But eventually, we'd have to say goodbye. Goodbye. We'd have to say goodbye. Goodbye. We'd have to say goodbye. Roll along day to day. Try not to think too much. Goodbye. We have to say goodbye. Goodbye. We have to say goodbye.
We rounded L'Île-Dieu just after sunset and headed back north into a nice breeze. I was able to get some good speed during the night on the Gennaker, not gaining on the front pack, but creating some gap with most of my competitors behind. When the light came back, the wind started to fade away. It was forecasted, but painful nonetheless.
A few moments later.
That was a fun peeling. Now let's clean up the mess. All that.
That whole part of the race was rather slow and uninteresting, except maybe for one part. So at that moment, we were all making our way north, with northeasterly wind. Current at that moment was southeasterly. I had to take the decision to carry on with the pack or try something risky, and it was that tack. At that moment, the favorable tack was to stay on a port tack and head north. But the wind just veered about 10 or 15 degrees, so I decided to do a tack that didn't look favorable at that moment, since it was guiding me away from my waypoint. But my bet was that staying on that tack for about an hour and a half, just the time for the current to change direction, could give me an advantage later. It's really hard to take these kind of decisions, because as soon as I tacked, I was about 2 knots slower than the guys next to me on the other tack and in the wrong direction. So I went below to have food and sleep, not to keep worrying about seeing the gap increasing. A few hours later, after having tacked again and made some way, the result of the gamble started to show. The 2 boats about a mile ahead of me when I went for that option were now about 3 miles behind. It looks super straightforward and easy when analyzing it afterwards on the race tracker. But this kind of decision-making tipping points are many in a race, especially a coastal one. And it's always gambling on variables hard to predict, such as wind, current, clouds, temperature, etc. It's not so often, but that time my gamble paid off big time. So happy days.
Words that I was thinking to tell you instead of a hot scream that's invading my head, but I know, and we all know that we are scratching time without me. and it's hurting my hands now. Will you help me stop? 'Cause I feel like our story is just like an airplane that crashes in our eyes, and the smoke makes beautiful drawings around us, but inside it's hard. And if I had seen that bird inside you teaching you how to fly from one hand to another, would tell me